When we look at people, we can sometimes affect them. People can turn round. If we're staring at them, they seem to detect our attention. If we think about somebody, we want to call them on the telephone, and then we call them. Quite often, people feel our intention before we make the call. They start thinking about us, and when we make the call, they say, "That's funny, I was just thinking about you." Like any other human ability, some people are better at it than others. Some people have a better sense of smell. Some people are more sensitive telepathically than others. I think in nature, this would play a very useful role. A prey animal that could tell when a predator was watching it would have a better chance of escaping than one that couldn't tell. Most of our activity depends on intentions. We're doing things for a reason. These intentions reach out beyond our minds to connect us with the environment. If you're a hunter and you're going out to hunt for something, you have an intention to find a prey animal, and that prey animal may pick up your intention and it might escape because of its picking up your intention. Our thoughts, our intentions are not really confined to our brains. I think the fields of our minds are inside our brains and extend beyond them. These fields connect us to the objects of our attention or intention, and they stretch out far beyond the brain. The materialist theory says that the mind is inside the brain. That means each of us is isolated from each other in the privacy of our skulls. If our minds are extended beyond our brains, it means that we're much more interconnected than we usually assume. But I think that's the way things are. We're social animals, and we've evolved to live in groups with other people. And no social animals can survive unless they're interconnected with other members of their group. I think brains are grossly overrated because people assume the brain is doing everything. I think the brain is more like a receiver. It's not storing everything and doing everything. It's open to transmissions that come from outside, and it's sending out transmissions to the world around it. These so-called paranormal phenomena, like telepathy, are not paranormal at all. They're perfectly normal. They're part of our animal nature. Animals have them too. They've evolved because they're useful. In a sense, we're less private because our thoughts and intentions can affect other people. Their thoughts and intentions can affect us. If our thoughts are simply private things inside our heads, it doesn't much matter what you think. It only matters what you say or what you do. But if your thoughts and attitudes and intentions and hopes and fears and loves and hates can have influences beyond your brain, it means we're more responsible for what we think. It's not just what we say and do, but what we think that matters. Most religious traditions have recognized this for a long time. Present-day science is based on a belief system, the materialist belief system, which has 10 basic dogmas, which are simply taken for granted. For example, the dogmas include nature is mechanical or machine-like. I think it's actually more like an organism than a machine. Matter is unconscious. That's another dogma. So that becomes the question, is matter unconscious? Nature has no purposes. It becomes the question, is nature purposeless? Well, I think the placebo effect is very clear evidence that the power of the mind is very important in healing, in cures. For a long time, conventional doctors treated the placebo effect as a nuisance. It got in the way of clinical trials. The attitudes towards it are shifting. We now realize that the placebo effect is a very important part of the healing process. Doctors used to say, we have real medicine with real medicines, whereas alternative and complementary practitioners, they're quacks. And if they get people better, that's just because of the placebo effect. But we now know that the placebo effect is going on everywhere all the time. It's a major problem in drug trials because many modern drugs like Prozac, in fact, aren't much better than placebos. In fact, it is no better than a placebo if you take all the trials into account. So I think we need to take into account people's beliefs, attitudes, and social support networks, because there's now a lot of evidence that people's getting better from diseases depends not just on medicines, but on their belief, on their attitude, on their spiritual practices, on their social networks, and even on factors like whether they keep a dog or cat. People with dogs or cats get better from heart attacks more effectively and quicker than people without dogs and cats. It's not just a disease, a pill that's a magic bullet and the cure of the disease. There's so many other factors which I'm sure every doctor knows, but the medical education tends to minimize these and put the maximum emphasis on chemistry and physics, drugs and surgery.